Hey, welcome to the Week in Review. I'm Tony Alvarez. This is a show that brings the week's biggest headlines and stories from an everyday person's point of view. And this week, man, there's some heavy stuff going on. President Biden authorized Ukraine to use long-range U.S. missiles into Russia. Now, that's a real big deal because it's already provoking Putin.
Moscow is upping the ante after President Biden authorized Kyiv to use U.S.-supplied long-range missiles to attack Russia.
President Biden has allowed Ukrainian officials to use ATACMS inside Russian territory.
President Biden's decision to allow Ukraine to strike Russia with long-range U.S. missiles.
Biden now going to allow Ukrainian forces to use long-range U.S. weapons inside of Russia for the very first time.
Putin has already threatened nuclear missile strikes, and I'm going to tell you, it's getting a little bit nerve-wracking right now. Here's what the Patrick Bet-David and Charlie Kirk podcast had to say about it.
Putin allows nuke response to U.S. missile as he signs off on World War III escalation. What does that mean? He signs off on World War III escalation. Let me read it to you. So Putin updated Russia's nuclear doctrine to permit nuclear retaliation against the West if Ukraine fires long-range missiles into Russian territory, a move into Kremlin's Dmitry Peskov's confirmed as targeting aggression with the use of conventional weapons following the U.S. approval for Ukraine to use these weapons 190 miles. Peskov warranted this policy reserves the right to use nuclear weapons and marks a significant escalation in the conflict.
It's hard to even put into words how reckless, how irresponsible our ruling class is. American-made missiles are now being shot into the interior of Russia. Now, I want you to imagine how America would respond if the cartels on the southern border were shooting in Russian missiles into America.
Now, for me, the real intimidating and scary part of this is Putin did issue a threat. And not only did he issue a threat, he acted on it. He fired an ICBM long-range missile into Ukraine. Now, fortunately, it didn't have any warheads on it. It wasn't nuclear. It wasn't armed. But he's flexing his muscle. He's showing off his power. And this is the wrong time to be doing this. This is 60 days out from the peaceful transfer of power to President-elect Donald Trump. And let me tell you, that can't come fast enough. So here's a little bit of what President-elect Donald Trump had to say about the Russian and Ukraine war and what he would do to stop it.
Say if you want Ukraine or Russia to win this war.
I want everybody to stop dying. They're dying. Russians and Ukrainians. I want them to stop dying.
See, that kind of response gives me hope, and that kind of response gives me peace of mind. I want to give you some of the statistics here that I was looking at, and it's insane. One of the things I read is that Ukrainian and Russian troops killed and wounded since the war started comes to the number of 500,000. 500,000. You got Russian military casualties approaching 300,000 and Ukrainian numbers approaching 120,000. Now, I really, honestly, and this is shame on me, I didn't realize that the numbers were this alarming and this high. I can only pray for a peaceful resolution to this war. And it's getting scary, and it's getting pretty heavy out there. Now, in my last podcast, I talked about Trump's cabinet and some of the nominees that he has that are making and creating a big stir. And one of them was Matt Gaetz. So Matt Gaetz was having trouble out of the gate, so to speak, no pun intended, because there were people on the Republican and the Democrat side that really didn't like that selection, and everybody was up in arms about it. But luckily, Matt Gaetz kind of declined the nomination and is fading out to the background. He didn't want to be too much of a distraction, but that opened the door for Trump to recommend Pam Bondi, the former Attorney General for Florida. And from what I've seen, there's been a general consensus on both sides that this is going to be the all-star pick. So I'm really excited about that one. And also from my last episode when I was talking about mainstream media dying, you can already see strange signs of that. So far left MSNBC mainstream media, their morning show, Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, his wife, they took a trip down to Florida. And where'd they go? They went to Mar-a-Lago. What were they doing there? meeting with Donald Trump.
Joe and I went to Mar-a-Lago to meet personally with President-elect Trump. It was the first time we have seen him in 7 years.
I find it totally fascinating that they met with Donald Trump. I thought it was a little suspicious. I want to kind of be an optimist and not, kind of rag on the situation because they called him Hitler. They called him every horrible thing in the book, a threat to democracy, all that kind of stuff. But they still went down there to meet him, and I wonder what their motives are. Could it be they're tanking ratings immediately following the election results? I think it is. But my best friend Sunny from The View, here's her negative slant to it.
I think that we have to be very clear-eyed when we think about the president-elect and cover the president-elect. And I don't think you need to sit down for 90 minutes at Mar-a-Lago and kiss his ring to be able to speak truth and to be able to cover a story.
Well, she's all rainbows and sunshine, I'll tell you that much. But listen, that's all I have for this week. And listen, if you're up against it, it's a small window of time, you'll get through it. And if you're doing well, ride that wave. This is Tony Alvarez, Week in Review. Peace.